In less than 60 days, the United Kingdom is due to leave the European Union. This is a bad decision. Listen, listen. Even as the Commission has defended the interests of the European Union, the spirit of respect and friendship has accompanied us at every step in these negotiations. The withdrawal agreement and political declaration agreed by all 27 leaders and the United Kingdom government is the result of that. The withdrawal agreement remains the best and only deal possible. The European Union said so in November. We said so in December. We said so after the first meaningful vote in the Commons in January. The debate and votes in the House of Commons yesterday do not change that. The withdrawal agreement will not be renegotiated. Both sides have said loud and clear that there can be no return to a hard border on the island of Ireland. No slipping back into darker times past. I believe the Prime Minister's personal commitment on this point, but I believe also that we need a safety net that secures us against this risk. We have no incentive nor desire to use the safety net, but at the same time, no safety net can ever truly be safe if it can just be removed at any time. Sometimes, from time to time, I have the impression that some hope that the 26 other countries will abandon the backstop, and so Ireland at the last minute. But this is not a game, and neither is it a simple bilateral issue. It goes to the heart of what being a member of the European Union means. Ireland's border is Europe's border, and it is our Union's priority. Ladies and gentlemen, we know from yesterday's debate that the House of Commons is against many things. It is against a no-deal Brexit. It is against the backstop. But we still do not know what exactly the House of Commons is actually for. The concept of alternative arrangements is not new. It was discussed in the negotiations. It is referred to in the political declaration. And in our letter to Prime Minister May, Donald Tusk and I committed to exploring it further as a matter of priority. But the concept is not a plan. It is not an operational solution. Many in the House of Commons, both amongst those who voted for and those who voted against the amendment, are aware of this. I will continue to be in close contact with Prime Minister May, for whom I have the greatest respect, and I will listen to her ideas. But I will also be extremely clear about the position of the European Union that I have presented today. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs.
President, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to tell you very clearly that yesterday's vote has further increased the risk of a disorderly exit of the United Kingdom. We have to continue to do everything in our power to prepare for all of the possible scenarios, including the worst. The Commission has begun its preparatory work in December 2017, and in close cooperation with the Parliament, we have accelerated our preparations. We have been sending teams to every capital city to ensure that each member state is ready. The Commission will provide full support to this work and has done since the beginning. We have had 88 notifications about the consequences of Brexit in different sectors. We have made proposals on specific areas such as Erasmus, social security, and the budget of the European Union. We are presenting these today. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of the members of the European Parliament to ensure that we can get a rapid agreement on these proposals, as well as on all of the other urgent files that are in the pipeline. It's important that the European Union remains calm, united and determined, as it has been throughout this process. In this work, we have to follow a golden rule. We have to follow the results of the agreement and of the political declaration.
I'm still an optimist by nature and a believer in democratic institutions by conviction. This leads me to believe that there can and will be agreement with the United Kingdom so that we can move on and move forward together with our new partnership. We will work day and night to make it happen and to ensure that we are ready in case it does not. Whichever way, I will always ensure that this House is the first to know and the last to decide. Thank you.
President, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary of State, first and foremost, Mr. President, thank you for allowing me once again to speak to you here in the plenary. And day after day, to consolidate against, next to President Juncker, this climate of dialogue, transparency and confidence that we have built together with you, ladies and gentlemen, members of the European Parliament, and in particular with the great Brexit steering group, Guy Verhofstadt and all the members of the group, over the past year and a half. We've had a meeting pretty much every week. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time yesterday, the UK Prime Minister, Theresa May, openly called to reopen the withdrawal agreement. Even before the vote late in the evening, she took distance from the agreement she herself had negotiated and on which we had achieved an agreement. The UK government then explicitly supported the amendment entered by Sir Graham Brady, calling for the backstop to be replaced. That was planned under the Irish protocol, and to have that replaced by alternative arrangements, which were never actually defined. At the same time, the House of Commons rejected the no-deal scenario without clarifying what means they would take to avoid that scenario. So that is currently the state of play. In terms of this extraordinary and lengthy negotiation, which, well, because I was in the front line and under the authority of President Juncker, President Tusk and yourself, it was very serious. Now, President Juncker reminded us what happened yesterday evening, and we share the will of the UK Parliament to avoid a no deal. I agree with Theresa May. Voting against a no deal, as happened yesterday, does not rule out the risk of a no deal. For us, ladies and gentlemen, the withdrawal agreement is and remains the best and only means to ensure an orderly withdrawal of the United Kingdom and to implement in an orderly manner the sovereign decision taken by the majority of UK citizens, which we respect, that being to leave the European Union. And despite the difficulties we're facing today, I believe we can achieve that objective on the condition that we are both lucid and realistic, and we are responsible and respectful on both sides, each side with the other. Ladies and gentlemen, the backstop, as mentioned by President Juncker, is part and parcel of the withdrawal agreement, and this agreement will not be renegotiated. The conclusions of the European Council in December, which squared with the resolutions of the European Parliament, leave no scope for doubt on that point. On the backstop, briefly, just so that everyone fully understands what we're talking about. The backstop, it's not any kind of dogmatism. It is a realistic solution throughout the negotiations under your control, we sought solutions to the problems created in particular, but not only, in particular in Ireland by Brexit itself. And the backstop, as it's included in the withdrawal agreement, is the outcome of these extremely intense negotiations over 2 years, involving us with the United Kingdom, never against the United Kingdom. The backstop is a pragmatic response to the unique situation on the island of Ireland after the UK decided in its sovereign right to leave not only the European Union but also the single market and then also the customs union. We needed 2 years to come up with this solution which reconciles various different requirements. The first one for all of us being to avoid at all costs the return of a hard border in Ireland. In other words, to preserve the conditions which have been in place for the past 20 years. Peace, stability and dialogue on the island of Ireland since the Good Friday and Belfast agreement was signed. And I would recall that the United Kingdom itself, through its own Prime Minister on several occasions, has confirmed its commitment as a co-guarantor of the conditions of that Good Friday Belfast agreement. And for 20 years, we ourselves, through the peace programme, European law, European policies, the European budget, we have supported the success of that cooperation between the various different communities. That's the first requirement then. The second requirement is the call from the UK government to keep Northern Ireland and UK in a single customs territory. The third requirement, obviously ours, the one for which we are collectively responsible, is to preserve the integrity of the internal market. That is a crucial point to us, ladies and gentlemen. The Irish border, because of the UK will, is going to become the border of the EU and our own internal market. It's going to be one of our new external border. And what is at stake, of course, is the protection of all consumers and companies in the Union. More specifically still, the UK decision to leave the EU, the single market, has a practical, and the customs union has a clear result. All goods, all animal or plant produce, all live animals going into Northern Ireland from the UK are not only entering Northern Ireland, but they're also entering into the single market of your countries, and the safety, the nature of those products linked to animal quality. And I'm saying this as a former Minister of Agriculture in my country. That requires checks. And those checks are implemented on all of our external borders, all around the EU. Health checks, fiscal checks, veterinary checks, and regulatory checks. And we owe that protection to the 500 million consumers and with the UK now, and the 22 million companies. We owe that protection to all of those who are in the internal market. For those people now calling to get rid of the backstop, there are members of the UK Parliament, and I heard some of them saying this morning, and they negotiated with us. And they know perfectly well that this backstop is the solution we came up with for what is the very heart, the core of us as Europeans, of our obligations and our principles, as President Juncker was saying. In other words, the protection of the internal market in all of its dimensions, all of the rights, social rights, economic rights, consumer rights, environmental rights, and protection for companies and consumers. So when I hear to some people who were even part and parcel of the negotiations, when I hear them saying what they're saying, it's tough. I find it hard to accept this blame game that they're trying to play against us. As President Juncker has said, we will do nothing. It's as simple as that. nothing which would undermine the internal market, nothing which would compromise the future of the European Union because of these negotiations. And as the President said, we are nonetheless open to alternative arrangements which were mentioned yesterday in the House of Commons. The Irish Protocol and the political declaration mentioned that, and the letter from President Juncker made that a priority for future negotiations. We're ready to work on that as soon as the withdrawal agreement is signed. But right here and now, quite honestly, no one, neither on one side nor on the other, can say very clearly and precisely what form these alternative arrangements will take, so that they can be operational and so that they can objectively meet the aims of the backstop. So once again, calmly but clearly, I will say right here and now, with this withdrawal agreement as proposed for ratification, we need this backstop as it is. Ladies and gentlemen, rejecting the backstop as it stands today boils down basically to rejecting the solution which was found with the British. But the problem remains, as I've already described it for you. And on that point, going beyond the alternative arrangements I mentioned, the European Council and the European Parliament on several occasions have already clearly rejected the idea of having a limit in time or leaving unilaterally the backstop, because that would undermine the very idea of the backstop. It's an assurance. We don't want to use it. Well, it's your own insurance for your house or your apartment or whatever. We don't want to use it, but it will be there if we need that insurance. Finally, the withdrawal agreement we're talking about, that you're very familiar with, goes well beyond the question of Ireland. This agreement ensures the rights of more than 4.5 million citizens. President Tajani, you talked about the priority of the Parliament. It's ours as well. And whatever happens, that priority to secure the rights of citizens, our compatriots, 3.5 of them living in the UK from our different countries, of course, and the rights of 1.5 million UK citizens in our countries. Securing those rights is our priority. We have to protect the beneficiaries, all of them, of the European budget in the 28 countries. The commitments we entered into with 28 have to be respected by 28. A 21-month transition period, in the course of which administrations and companies on both sides will be able to prepare themselves for this future relationship. And that will give us a time, not long, it will be very demanding, but that will give us a time to negotiate the future relationship in a new stage of the negotiations. So this agreement is the necessary first step to build confidence between the United Kingdom, which will remain an ally, a partner, a friendly country, and the European Union. A real, solid, ambitious partnership. And I would just like to add that in respect of this future relationship, the Europeans are ready and will continue to be ready over coming days to be more ambitious and to rework the nature and intensity of our future relations, economic relations in particular. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, that there are several models for economic cooperation with third countries. Each of these models obviously has its own balance of rights and obligations, but there are many different models. If the UK demand were to evolve beyond a simple free trade agreement, on which we agreed in the political declaration, and they move towards one or the other of these models, we will be ready to discuss that immediately and express our own ambitions in the face of the UK ambitions. We've said that already, as you have in your resolutions, as has the European Council. I mentioned lucidity beforehand and realism, as you did, Madam Secretary of State. It's less than 60 days now to when the UK is going to leave, but we don't have a positive majority now in the House of Commons on a clearly identified solution accepted by the UK. And as President Juncker said, it is therefore urgent that we should be prepared for all scenarios, and we should bring in all contingency measures which are more essential than ever. And that's what the Secretary General has been called upon to do by President Juncker, who's working with you and all of your teams. Thank you very much for your attention and for your confidence.